Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space. And a couple more cards using some of the Pretty Pink Posh September release. I've already done a video using some of the other products from this release, and I'll have that linked in the end screen at the end of this video. Today, I'm part of an Instagram hop to share more inspiration. I will have a link to my Instagram as always in the description box below the video, so you can come on over there if you don't already follow me. Highly recommend it, you know. And there's inspiration, giveaways, all the things. That's the main reason. And yeah, super cute. Did some coloring. As I'm filming this intro, I'm actually still working on the cards. Trying to get as many things done. This is me multitasking, everybody. As always, I'll have a link to the new release in the description box below the video. Definitely worth checking out because Pretty Pink Posh, every release is always perfection, cuteness, love it. And I'll have, of course, a list of supplies and links to everything I use. That will also be in the description box below, like always. My links are affiliate links. That just means that if you click on one of my links, end up placing an order, I get a little kickback from that at no extra cost to you. That is what helps pay the bills, keeps the channel going, etc. And that's it for the housekeeping. Let's get into making the cards. So I went traditional in the color scheme this time. My other Pretty Pink Posh video, I went very non-traditional with the colors. It's fun to mix it up. I'm using the Fall Bouquets stamp set. I don't know what it is about like stamp images of like floral arrangements in a vase. I have no idea what it is, but I love it. And I wanted to use like every image, but I was like, I only have time to do like 2 cards very similarly. But I managed to squeeze in an extra little floral arrangement. I'm like, ooh, I'll stick 2 on because I really liked that little one too with the little sunflowers. So I stamped them onto some Simon Says Stamp 120 pound smooth white cardstock with intense black ink, which is an alcohol marker friendly ink. And then to do my coloring, I'm using my Olo markers again. And I'll have that linked in the end screen as well. My playlist that I have of all the videos I've done just using these markers. Any alcohol markers will work. And for me, with Olos, so far, I am still just using them as half markers, my little stublets. I haven't connected them, so that's why they look funny on screen. I'm fine with it. For now, it's just working for me like this. And for my coloring, very simple coloring. Literally anyone can do this. Like, this is no practice needed, no experience necessary, because I am not doing any blending. You know, I'm not using multiple shades, etc. I am using just 2 colors per section, using a lighter color, throwing it on, and then I take a darker shade and just add a little bit, like just kind of add a line. That's it. Very, very, very simple and effective. I don't do it this way very often. I've done it in previous videos with like my Copics and whatnot, but yeah, and with smaller images like this, it's actually even easier in my opinion. I've done it in other videos where I've stamped like very large images, you know, with a lot more like open space, and you have to be a little more intentional with ones like that, like where you're placing your darker shade, just because it's much more noticeable. But with littler images like this, just slap the color on. That's what I did. That's what I did. It works. I just add the lighter color and then I add the darker color sort of where shadows would be. But I've talked about this before. I honestly don't follow shading and light sources and things like that. I agree with it. You know? Light study and all of that. Maybe down the road I'll like start visiting that and addressing it in videos, but honestly, it's card making. None of this is going in a Louvre. I have yet to give a card to someone and they're like, wow, your light sources are all over the place. You know, I just don't worry about it. That said, if you want to like step up your game, that's when you can start really like looking into that and where to place shadows and all that. I'm not saying none of it's important. It's just don't worry about it too much with card making. You know, enjoy the coloring process and then get into the nitty gritties. So, and then coloring like this is just fun. Like, yeah, you don't have to worry about blends. You don't need to have a ton of colors, and it still turns out. So I just worked my way around coloring all these in very fall colors. I do love me a fall color palette, jewel tones and deep orangey reds and sunflowers and all the things. I'm like, yes, it just love. And then of course the finishing touch is adding all the little white gel pen bits. And same thing, not following any rules. I just stick dots and lines wherever I can squeeze them in. That's the that's the secret. So went around and did that, and I love how they especially pop on because such deeper colors, and then so the white gel pen highlights, just look at it, love it. So when I was done my coloring, I used the coordinating wafer die set to die cut these out. Took a risk. I didn't tape these down. I was just, that mat is magnetic, and I do cut into my magnetic mat. I said in previous videos I was never going to do it, and then I don't know, at one point I just went crazy, changed my mind, and started cutting into the magnetic mat of my Empress, and we're all still here, so I guess it's okay. Anywho, after I did that, I pulled out one of my big grip mats, and I've got some Neenah Desert Storm cardstock, and I'm using the Pretty Pink Posh, it is hard to read in this light, Layered Leaf Lattice stencil set. And I pulled off the second piece of Neenah Desert Storm because I was like, oh yeah, this is how I usually do it when I want to stencil on the inside of my card. So I put my card base also on the grip mat with a piece of Post-it tape where the score line is. That just prevents me from getting ink past the, edge of the stencil, etc. And the lattice portion of the stencil, I am using Concord and Ninth wheat ink. And on the Desert Storm piece of cardstock, I am much more heavily applying the ink, like really tapping my brush in there, really swirling that on there. And then for the inside of the card, I don't re-ink my brush at all. And that's hard to show on camera, but I'm not applying pressure to the brush either. I'm very lightly, just lightly brushing it across the stencil. So I get that lighter impression, because on the inside of my card, I don't want it to be super dark or intense, because you need to be able to write over this and to be able to see it. So I'm doing the same thing with the second part of the stencil, which is these leaves, which if I'd had the time, like a glitter paste with that would have looked amazing. But again, didn't have the time. So I just used ink. And for this, I was using Concord 9th Nutmeg. So it's a darker shade of brown. And I did the same thing. On the craft piece, heavily applied the ink. And then on the inside of the card, I just would lightly brush. And especially with that one, like very lightly brush. Like I was barely touching the stencil, really. Because this is a much deeper shade of ink. So that I still get the pattern on the inside, but it's not super intense. So just kept flipping back and forth between the card front and then the inside. And yeah, just very gentle, very light, very demure. And then for my sentiments, I pulled out another new set, which is also super cute because it's got like the little like apple crate and whatnot. And then you can fill it with pumpkins and apples. And again, I need more hours in the day. But I just used a couple of the sentiments from this set. This is the Fall Harvest little set, and I stamped the little autumn greetings onto just a scrap of dark brown cardstock, and I'd used my anti-static powder tool on the cardstock, and then stamped the sentiment with clear embossing ink, coated it with some detail white embossing powder, and then melted that with my heat tool, used my microfiber cloth to remove that excess anti-static powder, and then I used a couple of my sentiment label wafer dies to die cut them, and then trimmed the sides off with my trimmer, which apparently I forgot to film that, but same old. So for the insides of my cards, I put those into my MISTI, and I'm stamping the big scripty thankful word from that same Fall Harvest set, and that I'm stamping with VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. And then I'm adding the little for you sentiment right under it, just button it button it right up underneath that little sentiment, get that lined up, and then I'm going to ink that up and stamp that with the Nocturne ink as well. So get those stamped, and that finishes off the insides of my cards. And then for my card fronts, I pulled out the Pretty Pink Posh Eyelet Circles die set, which I've used quite a bit. I love it. I think they're so cute. So I had die cut vellum with one of the larger ones, and then white cardstock with one of the smaller Eyelet circle dies. And my backgrounds from the craft backgrounds, I had trimmed those down to just slightly smaller than my A2 card base. So I trimmed them down to like 4 by 5.25. And then to adhere my vellum circle, I only put some glue more in the center of this, because I've talked about this a lot. Glue shows through vellum and it ain't pretty. So I'm hiding the glue behind that white circle that's going to get adhered on top. So that's why I only put glue right in the very center. I adhered it to the card front and then used the edge of the card front as my guide and trimmed off that excess vellum, and then pulled some baker's twine from my stash, wrapped that around the card front, and then as always, start the knot, use my reverse tweezers to hold it in place so that I can make my little bow, get it the way I want it, fiddle it, and then once I'm happy with it, pull it tight, remove the tweezers, pull it tight again, fiddle with it some more, and then trim off the excess. And then to adhere that white eyelet circle, I flipped it over, used a pencil line just to mark where the edge is, and also left a gap where the baker's twine is so that this will adhere nicely on top of it. And then peeled off the foam tape, and this is Simon's Big Mama foam tape, so it'll give it, again, a little bit of dimension, not a lot of bulk. And then same thing, carefully flip that over and trimmed off the excess that was hanging off the edge, just making sure not to cut the baker's twine that was wrapped around it. And then my little flower arrangement, same thing, I just popped up with a little bit of the Big Mama foam tape, and then used a couple little foam squares to adhere my sentiment. I did the same thing with the second card. I just added that second little flower arrangement to it. And then as my final bit of embellishment, I have some Pretty Pink Posh Espresso Confetti and Matte Gold Confetti. And just kind of sprinkled those around both of these cards. And then when I was happy with the placement, pick them up with my little embellishment wand, adhere it down with some craft tacky glue, tucked one in there. I don't know what it is. I love tucking the confetti underneath other elements on my cards. So adhere those into place, and that finished off these very fall traditional color cards. So, like I mentioned in the intro, I'll have links to all the things in the description box below the video, as well as links to the videos and whatnot that I mentioned. Those will be in the end screen. So check that out if you're interested. Expand the description box if you're interested. Thank you all so much for stopping by, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you, and I'll see you all very soon in the next video. Bye. Thank you so much to my amazing Patreon supporters. For anyone that might be interested in supporting me over on Patreon, the link to that is in the description box below the video. For everyone else, as always, thank you all so much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you. And here's a couple other videos for you to check out in case you missed them. Bye.